Commander Han stood at the window of the Korean Space Defense Force headquarters, watching the morning sun rise over Seoul. The city gleamed with its mix of old temples and new buildings, but his mind was on the strange message that had arrived during the night. "Commander, we've received another transmission," said Jin, walking quickly into his office. She held a tablet in her hands, her face showing worry. As both his daughter and the head of xenobiology, she was one of the few people who could enter his office without permission. "What do the aliens say this time?" Han asked, turning away from the window. The Nix Alliance had been sending odd messages for the past week. Usually, they only contacted Earth for trade or to remind humans about space travel rules. "It's different, Father. They're scared of something." Jin placed her tablet on his desk. Strange symbols flashed across the screen. Their usual code is messy, like they wrote it in a hurry. Han leaned forward to look at the symbols. In his 20 years of working with alien messages, he had never seen them make mistakes in their perfect codes. "Can you read it?" "Yes, but..." Jin's fingers moved across the screen, turning the alien symbols into Korean text. "I wish I couldn't." The message was simple but terrifying. "Void civiliarum HFY rogue. Evacuation begins. Lesser species mused manage NDP and Italy." Lesser species. Han's voice was quiet but angry. "They mean us, don't they?" Jin nodded. "The Alliance has always looked down on us because we're new to space travel. But this is different. They're running away and leaving us to die." The office computer screen suddenly lit up. A live feed from the moon base showed hundreds of alien ships appearing from nowhere. The massive ships of the Nix Alliance were breaking formation, turning away from Earth. "They're actually leaving," Han whispered. He pressed the emergency button on his desk. Alarms began to sound throughout the building. Jin was already working on her tablet. "The moon base says they're getting strange readings from the edge of our solar system. Something big is coming." Han picked up his phone to call the president. As he waited, more reports flooded in. The Alliance ships were disappearing one by one, jumping away to safety. The few alien traders still on Earth were rushing to their ships. "What's a void swarm?" he asked Jin. She shook her head. "I don't know. The Alliance database only says they've destroyed thousands of worlds. No pictures, no details. Just that no one has ever stopped them." The president answered, and Han quickly explained the situation. As he talked, Jin worked on translating more messages. Her face grew paler with each one. "Father," she interrupted, "the Alliance just sent their last message. They say..." She stopped, her hands shaking slightly. "What do they say?" "They say they're sorry, but Earth isn't worth saving. We're too primitive. They say we should feel honored that they warned us at all." Han finished his call with the president and stood up. Outside his window, he could see people going about their normal lives, not knowing what was coming. In the sky, the last Alliance ships were becoming tiny dots before vanishing. "How long do we have?" he asked. Jin checked her calculations. "Maybe 3 months before they reach our solar system." Han walked to the window again. His reflection showed a man who looked older than he had that morning, but his eyes were hard and determined. "Then we have 3 months to prepare. If the Alliance won't help us, we'll fight alone." He turned to his daughter. "Jin, I need you to learn everything you can about these void swarm creatures. The Alliance might think we're primitive, but they forget something important." "What's that?" "Humans have been fighting to survive since we first walked on Earth. We've never needed anyone's permission to live." He picked up his phone again. "Call Captain Lee. Tell him to get every ship we have ready. If the galaxy has abandoned us, then we'll show them what a lesser species can do." As Jin hurried out, Han looked at the empty sky one last time. The Alliance had left them to die, but they would soon learn a hard lesson. When the void swarm came, they wouldn't find helpless primitives waiting to be destroyed. they would find humans ready to fight. Earth changed more in 3 days than it had in 30 years. The world's leaders met in Seoul, knowing they had to work together or die alone. Commander Han watched as ancient enemies sat side by side, planning humanity's defense. "Our space fleet is too small," Captain Lee said, pointing to the hologram map in the war room. He was young for his rank, but no one knew space combat better. "We have only 50 warships. The Alliance had thousands, and they still ran away." "Then we change how we fight," Han replied. He walked to the map and zoomed in on Earth's defense platforms. The Alliance built huge ships because they could. We built small ones because we had to. Maybe that will save us. Jin burst into the room, holding new data from her lab. Her white coat was wrinkled from 3 days without sleep, but her eyes were bright with excitement. "I found something." She spread her research on the table. "Look at these pictures from our deep space cameras. The void swarm isn't one big creature. It's billions of small ones, flying together like angry bees." The room went quiet as everyone looked at the blurry images. The void swarm looked like a dark cloud moving through space, eating everything in its path. "Bees," Captain Lee said slowly, a smile growing on his face. "Bees have weaknesses. They can't fly well in rain. They get confused by smoke." He turned to Jin. "What confuses these space bees?" "Their bodies are simple," Jin explained, showing close-up pictures. "They don't have good eyes. They find their targets by feeling heat and movement. And look at this." She pointed to a picture of a dead swarm creature found floating in space. "Their skin is very thin. They survive by staying close together." Han looked at Captain Lee. "Could our small ships get between them? Break them apart?" "Better than that," Lee replied. "Our ships can dance around them. The Alliance built big, slow ships. Ours are small and fast. We can split their swarm into pieces." The next 2 months were a race against time. Every factory on Earth worked day and night. They built new weapons designed to fight the swarm. Scientists from all countries worked with Jin, looking for more ways to hurt the enemy. Captain Lee trained his pilots in new ways to fight. They practiced flying in tight groups, then splitting apart fast. Like wolves hunting bigger animals, they would attack the swarm's weak spots and run away before it could catch them. "The Alliance thinks size and power win wars," Lee told his pilots. "But Earth's history shows that clever fighters can beat stronger enemies. We just have to be smarter than them." Han worked with the space colonies, helping them build shelters and defenses. Some colonies were too far out to save. He ordered them to evacuate, bringing their people back to safer places. One evening, Han found Jin asleep at her desk. He put a blanket over her shoulders and looked at her work. She had found a way to make special bombs that would hurt the swarm but not harm human ships. On her computer screen was a message she was writing to the Alliance. "Don't waste your time," he said softly, even though she couldn't hear him. "They made their choice. Now we make ours." The next day, Earth's new fleet was ready. They had built 200 more ships, small but deadly. Each one carried Jin's special weapons and followed Lee's new battle plans. "Will it be enough?" Jin asked, standing with her father as they watched the ships take off. "It has to be," Han answered. "We're not just fighting for ourselves. Think about all the other worlds the Alliance abandoned. If we win, we show everyone that you don't need to be the biggest or strongest. You just need to be brave enough to try." The fleet formed up above Earth, a wall of small ships ready to defend their home. In the distance, their telescopes could see the dark cloud of the void swarm coming closer. The Alliance had run away from this fight, thinking it was hopeless. But as Han looked at Earth's fleet, he felt proud. Humans didn't run from fights, even hopeless ones. They faced them head-on and found ways to win. The real test was coming. Soon, they would show the galaxy what humans could do. The void swarm reached Neptune's orbit on a Tuesday morning. Earth's deep space cameras showed them clearly for the first time. They looked like a huge black cloud that ate everything in its path, leaving only empty space behind. Captain Lee sat in his command ship, watching the enemy approach. His hands were steady on the controls, but his heart beat faster. This was humanity's first real space battle, and everything depended on their plan working. "All ships, remember your training," he said into the radio. "Stay in your groups. Don't let them surround you. Hit and run, just like we practiced." The first attack came at one of Neptune's mining stations. The swarm moved faster than anyone expected, surrounding the station in seconds. But Lee was ready. "Group 1, attack," he ordered. 20 small Earth ships shot forward, moving in a tight circle. They fired Jin's special weapons into the swarm. The weapons exploded into clouds of tiny metal pieces, each one covered in chemicals that Jin had created. The effect was immediate. Where the metal clouds hit, the swarm creatures started falling apart. Holes appeared in the black cloud as hundreds, then thousands of the creatures died. "It's working," someone shouted over the radio. "They're not invincible." But the swarm learned quickly. They changed their shape, trying to catch the Earth ships. That's when Lee used his second trick. "Groups 2 and 3, go in now," he commanded. More ships darted forward, but these moved differently. They flew in zigzag patterns, confusing the swarm's simple eyes. The enemy couldn't predict where the ships would go. Back on Earth, Commander Han and Jin watched the battle through the space cameras. Jin held her breath every time the swarm got close to their ships, but Captain Lee's training worked. The ships always slipped away just in time. "Look at how they move," Han said proudly. "The swarm expects easy targets, like those big Alliance ships. Our pilots are too quick for them." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the mining station was safe, and a large part of the swarm was destroyed. Earth had won its first space battle. But there was no time to celebrate. The main body of the swarm was still coming, and it was angry. The creatures had never failed to destroy a target before. Now they moved faster, more aggressively toward Earth. Captain Lee brought his fleet back to Uranus orbit to regroup. They had lost 3 ships in the fight, and every pilot was tired. But they had learned important things about fighting the swarm. "They're strong but stupid," Lee told Han over the video link. "They always attack the same way. They try to surround their target and crush it. But that makes them predictable." Jin was already working on improving her weapons based on the battle data. "Their bodies dissolve even faster than I thought when hit with the right chemicals," she said. "We can make stronger weapons now." Then something unexpected happened. Earth started getting messages from other worlds. The Alliance had abandoned many planets, telling them to face the swarm alone. Now these planets wanted to know how Earth had fought back. "Send them everything," Han ordered. "Our tactics, our weapons designs, everything. The Alliance left us all to die. We'll show them that was a mistake." That night, as Earth prepared for the next battle, Han found Jin looking at the stars from the base roof. "I always thought the Alliance aliens were better than us," she said. "More advanced, more civilized. But they ran away and left everyone else to die. How does that make them better?" "Being advanced isn't just about having big ships or fancy weapons," Han replied. "It's about what you do with them. The Alliance chose to save only themselves. We choose to fight, not just for us, but for everyone." The next day, more swarm attacks came. But this time, Earth wasn't fighting alone. Ships from other abandoned worlds joined them, using Earth's tactics and weapons. The swarm faced something they had never seen before: worlds fighting back together. As Han watched the combined fleet prepare for battle, he smiled. The Alliance had thought they were abandoning weak, primitive worlds to die. Instead, they had created something new: an alliance of fighters who wouldn't give up. The real war was just beginning. But now, Earth and its new friends were ready to show the galaxy what primitive species could do. Jin hadn't left her lab in 3 days. Empty coffee cups covered her desk, but she didn't care. She had found something important in the dead swarm creatures from the last battle. "Father, look at this," she called out as Commander Han entered the lab. Under her microscope, a piece of swarm creature glowed strangely. They're not just sensitive to chemicals, they're afraid of certain lights. Han looked through the microscope. "Can we use this?" "Better than that," Jin smiled. "I've already made new weapons. They combine the chemicals with special lights. The swarm won't just die. They'll run away from the lights first." Captain Lee's voice came from the computer screen. "How soon can we get these new weapons?" 2 days, Jin answered. "And there's more. The lights make them confused. They'll attack each other if we use the right colors." This was the advantage they needed. The swarm had reached Saturn's rings, destroying everything in their path. But now Earth had a new plan. Lee gathered his fleet near Jupiter. Ships from other abandoned worlds joined them. Flat disk ships from Beta 9, long arrow-shaped ships from Meridian, and round bubble ships from Aquarii 3. Each brought their own ways of fighting. "The swarm thinks they're hunting us," Lee told the combined fleet. "Today, we hunt them instead." The battle began at Jupiter's largest moon. The swarm came in their usual attack pattern, a huge black cloud ready to surround and crush everything. But this time, Earth's fleet didn't run. "All ships, activate the new weapons," Lee ordered. Bright beams of colored light shot out from the Earth ships, cutting through the swarm. Where the lights touched, the creatures scattered in panic. Some turned on each other, attacking their own kind in confusion. The alien ships joined in, each using Earth's new weapons in their own way. Beta 9's disk ships spun fast, spreading the light in all directions. Meridian's arrows shot straight through the swarm, cutting it into pieces. Aquarii's bubbles trapped groups of creatures in spheres of light. "It's working better than I hoped," Jin said, watching from Earth. The swarm was breaking apart everywhere the fleet attacked. For the first time, the swarm retreated. The black cloud pulled back, trying to escape the lights that hurt them. But Lee didn't let them get away. "Chase them," he ordered. "Don't let them regroup." The combined fleet followed the swarm, pushing them back past Saturn. Every time the creatures tried to come together again, the ships hit them with more lights and chemicals. In space near Saturn's rings, something amazing happened. A small Alliance scout ship appeared, watching the battle. They had come to see if Earth was destroyed yet. Instead, they saw the swarm running away from the people they had abandoned. They saw Earth's small ships leading a fleet of primitive worlds, winning a fight that the mighty Alliance had been afraid to face. The Alliance ships sent a message: "We offer our assistance in this battle." Han's answer was short: "We don't need it." That night, after the swarm had been pushed back to Uranus, the pilots celebrated their victory. Ships from all the different worlds gathered together, their crews sharing stories and food. "Look at them," Han said to Jin as they watched the celebration on video. "The Alliance spent years keeping worlds apart, telling us we weren't ready to join them. Now we're all fighting together anyway." Jin nodded. Maybe that's why the Alliance was really afraid of the swarm. Not because it could destroy them, but because fighting it would bring all of us together. Captain Lee joined them on the video screen. He looked tired but happy. "The other worlds want to make our alliance official," he said. "Not like the old alliance that left us. Something new. Something better." "What would we call it?" Han asked. "They want to call it the Earth Defense Coalition," Lee answered. "Because Earth was the first to fight back, and the first to help others fight too." Han looked at the celebration again. Humans were dancing with aliens from Beta 9, sharing jokes with Meridian pilots, learning songs from Aquarii crews. The Alliance had abandoned them all, thinking they were too primitive to save. Instead, they had found something the Alliance never had: the courage to stand together and fight back. "The swarm is still out there," Jin said. "They'll come back stronger." "Let them come," Han replied. "We're stronger too now. and we're not running away. The next Alliance's biggest ship appeared over Earth 1 month after the Great Battle at Saturn. It was huge, bigger than any building on Earth, shining like a metal mountain in the sky. Commander Han stood in the meeting room of the Earth Defense Force, watching as 3 Alliance leaders walked in. They looked exactly like they had 3 months ago when they abandoned Earth, tall and proud in their glittering uniforms. "We are impressed," the Alliance leader said, his voice smooth and practiced. "You have done the impossible. Now we wish to help you finish this war." Jin sat next to her father, her face calm but her eyes angry. She had lost friends in the battles against the swarm, friends who died fighting a war the Alliance had run away from. "Help us?" she asked quietly. "Like you helped all the worlds you abandoned." The Alliance leaders looked uncomfortable. They weren't used to being questioned by lesser species. "We made a strategic choice," another Alliance leader said. "We didn't think any of you would survive. But now that you've proven yourselves worthy." "Worthy?" Captain Lee's voice came from the big screen on the wall. He was leading the fleet near Neptune, still hunting the swarm. "We were always worthy. You just didn't want to risk your own lives to help anyone else." Han held up his hand for silence. When he spoke, his voice was polite but firm. "You want to join our fight now? Fine, but not as leaders. Not anymore." The Alliance leaders looked shocked. "You don't understand," the third one said. "We have the biggest fleet in the galaxy, the most advanced weapons." "And you ran away," Han interrupted, "while we stayed and fought, while we shared our weapons and tactics with everyone you abandoned, while we built something better than your Alliance ever was." He pressed a button, and the room's screens lit up. They showed the Earth Defense Coalition fleet. Ships from 30 different worlds flew together, protecting each other, fighting as one team. They had all learned Earth's ways of fighting, but added their own ideas too. "Look at what you abandoned," Jin said. "Look at what we built after you left us to die." The Alliance leaders watched the screens. They saw small Earth ships leading the way, Beta 9's disk ships spinning beside them, Meridian arrows striking fast and hard, Aquari bubbles protecting damaged ships. "Your big ships wouldn't fit in our battle plans anyway," Han said. "We fight smart, not just big. We work together, not just give orders. That's why we're winning." "The swarm is not defeated yet," an Alliance leader warned. "They will come back stronger." "We know," Lee said from the screen. "We'll be ready. The question is, are you ready to learn from us? To fight our way?" The Alliance leaders looked at each other. For the first time in their history, they had to decide if they could follow instead of lead. "If we say no," one asked. "Then stay out of our way," Han answered. "We didn't need you before. We don't need you now." That evening, Jin found her father looking at the stars again. The Alliance ship still hung in the sky, its crew still trying to decide what to do. "Do you think they'll join us?" she asked. "Maybe," Han said, "but it doesn't matter. Look." He pointed to the screens showing the Coalition fleet. "Every ship out there proves something important. It proves that being advanced isn't about having the biggest ships or the fanciest weapons. What is it about then? It's about helping others when they need it, about sharing what you know instead of keeping it to yourself, about fighting for what's right, even when it's hard." He smiled. The Alliance forgot that. We didn't. Later that night, the Alliance leaders gave their answer. They would join the Coalition, not as leaders, but as equals. Their big ships would stay back, carrying supplies and protecting wounded ships. They would learn to fight the Earth way. As Jin watched their huge ship join the Coalition fleet, she thought about how much had changed. The Alliance had abandoned Earth, thinking humans were too primitive to save. Instead, humans had saved themselves, and then they had saved everyone else too. The real war was still ahead. But now, when the swarm returned, they would face something they had never seen before, A galaxy it wasn't afraid anymore, fighting together the human way. The Void Swarm came back 3 days after the Alliance joined the coalition. This time, they were bigger than before, filling the space between Uranus and Neptune with their dark cloud. But Earth was ready. All ships in position. Captain Lee called from his command ship. The coalition fleet spread out in the new formation they had practiced. Earth ships led each group, with Beta-9 discs, Meridian arrows, and Aquari bubbles mixed together behind them. Even the Alliance ships had learned their part. Their huge vessels stayed back, using their strong shields to protect the smaller ships when they needed to retreat and reload. Jin's new weapons are ready. Commander Han reported from Earth. Every ship has them. Remember, the blue lights will make the swarm attack itself. The red lights will make them run away. The swarm struck first, trying to split the coalition fleet in half. But Lee was ready for this trick. Group 1 and 2, cross pattern, he ordered. Earth ships shot forward in crossing lines, their lights cutting through the swarm. Behind them, Beta-9's discs spun through the gaps, spreading the lights wider. They're breaking up. Someone shouted over the radio. Where the lights touched them, the swarm creatures turned on each other in confusion or fled in panic. Jin watched from her lab on Earth, checking the data from the battle. The new weapons work even better than our tests showed, she said to her father. The swarm can't handle all the different lights at once. The battle moved past Uranus, then past Saturn. Everywhere the coalition fleet went, they left broken pieces of the swarm behind. When some creatures tried to run away, Meridian's arrow ships chased them down. When coalition ships needed rest, Aquari bubbles covered them safely. Look how they fight together, Han said proudly. On his screens, he could see ships from different worlds protecting each other, helping each other, fighting as one team. This is what the Alliance never understood. We're stronger together than apart. The swarm tried every trick they knew. They tried to surround the fleet, but the Earth ships were too quick. They tried to attack from below, but Beta-9's discs caught them. They tried to run and hide, but Meridian's arrows found them. They're running out of tricks, Lee said, and we're just getting started. Then Jin noticed something important in her data. The swarm is trying to get back to where they came from, she told Lee. They're not just running away. They're going home. This was their chance. If they could follow the swarm home, they could end this fight forever. All ships, push forward, Lee ordered. Don't let them escape. The coalition fleet chased the swarm past Jupiter, past the asteroid belt, moving faster and faster. The Alliance ships used their strong engines to pull damaged ships along, keeping the fleet together. Near Mars, they saw something strange. The swarm was gathering in one huge group, bigger than anything they had seen before. They're preparing for one last attack, Lee warned. Everyone ready. The swarm turned and charged at the fleet, like a giant black wave in space. It was their biggest attack yet, desperate and dangerous. But the coalition was ready. As the swarm came at them, every ship turned on their lights at once. Blue and red beams crossed through space, hitting the swarm from all sides. The effect was amazing. The giant black wave broke apart. Swarm creatures crashed into each other in confusion, or turned and fled in terror. What had looked like an unstoppable attack fell apart into chaos. Keep pushing, Lee shouted. Don't stop. The coalition ships moved forward together, their lights blazing. They forced the broken swarm back, away from Mars, away from the solar system, pushing them toward the deep space they had come from. As Jin watched the battle data, she smiled. They're not just running away now, she said. They're really scared. They've never lost like this before. Han nodded. Because they've never faced anything like this before. Not just humans, not just Earth, but everyone fighting together. The battle wasn't over yet. They still had to chase the swarm back to their home. But as Han watched the coalition fleet push forward together, he knew they would win. The galaxy had abandoned them. But that had only made them stronger. After 6 days of chasing the swarm through deep space, the Coalition fleet found what they were looking for. Hidden behind a cluster of dead stars was a massive dark cloud, the swarm's home nest. That's where they all came from, Jin said, looking at the images from the fleet's cameras. That's why they kept running this way. Captain Lee gathered all the Coalition ships for one final battle. Earth ships in front, Beta 9 discs and Meridian arrows on the sides, Aquari bubbles protecting them, and Alliance ships supporting from behind. This is it, he told everyone. Everything we've learned, everything we fought for, it all comes down to this. Commander Han watched from Earth as the fleet moved into position. He thought about how far they had come since that day when the Alliance abandoned them. How humans had learned to fight the swarm, then taught others, then built something new and better. All ships ready, Lee reported. Jin, are the special weapons set? Yes, Jin answered. She had worked for days to make their strongest weapons yet. These will hit the nest with all the lights at once. If it works, it'll work, Han said firmly. Begin the attack. The Coalition fleet moved forward together. The swarm rose up from their nest to meet them, like a black wave rising from a dark ocean. But this time, the Coalition didn't wait for them to attack. All ships, fire, Lee ordered. Every ship fired at once. Blue lights, red lights, and Jin's chemicals filled space. The lights hit the swarm nest directly, lighting up the darkness like a new sun. The effect was more than they had hoped for. The nest itself started to break apart. Swarm creatures poured out in panic, crashing into each other, fleeing in all directions. The nest is their weak point, Jin shouted, looking at her data. Hit it again. The Coalition ships pressed forward. Earth ships led the way, firing straight into the nest. Beta 9 discs spun through the confused swarm, their lights splitting up the creatures. Meridian arrows shot down any that tried to escape. Aquari bubbles trapped whole groups of them. Even the Alliance ships helped, their huge energy beams adding to the attack. They had learned to fight the Earth way, as part of the team instead of trying to do everything alone. The battle raged for hours. Slowly but surely, the Coalition pushed closer to the nest. The swarm fought back desperately, but they couldn't stop the combined attack. Then Jin saw something in her readings. The nest is collapsing. She called out, "Everyone get back." The Coalition ships pulled away just in time. The swarm nest collapsed in on itself, pulling most of the surviving creatures with it. In a flash of light, it was gone, leaving only empty space behind. A cheer went up across the Coalition fleet. After all their battles, all their losses, they had finally won. The swarm was defeated. Later, during the celebration on Earth, Han found Jin looking at the stars again. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how everything changed," she answered. "The Alliance abandoned us because they thought we were too primitive. But being primitive wasn't weakness, it was our strength." Han nodded. "We had to learn everything the hard way. How to fight, how to survive. But we also learned how to help others, how to work together. That's what really won this war." The celebration lasted for days. Ships from all the Coalition worlds came to Earth, their crews joining in the party. Even the Alliance members joined in, finally understanding what real cooperation meant. A month later, the Coalition made things official. They created the Galactic Defense Force, with Earth as its headquarters. Jin became its chief scientist, studying ways to protect against future threats. Lee was made fleet commander, teaching their fighting methods to new pilots. As for Commander Han, he was offered leadership of the whole Coalition. But he turned it down. "The Coalition doesn't need one leader," he said. "It needs all of us, working together, like we did against the swarm." Instead, they created a council with members from all worlds, including Earth. They would make decisions together, fight together, protect each other. The Alliance had abandoned them all, thinking they were too primitive to save. Instead, the primitive worlds had saved themselves and built something better than the Alliance ever was. Now, when anyone looked at Earth, they didn't see a primitive world anymore. They saw the planet that fought when others ran away, the world that helped others fight too, the place where the galaxy learned that being advanced isn't about having the best weapons or biggest ships. It's about having the courage to stand together, no matter what comes.